I'd like to see the Mexican people build up their own country. They got all the mineral wealth. They have copper, they have silver, they have gold, they have oil. What's the problem? Why are they coming up here?
$22 días me inventé, imagínense. Para que otra vez me para que otra vez me regrese a mi tierra con la mano vacía. No, jefe. No, hay que hacer todo el intento para cruzar y la veces que me deporten, la veces que voy a cruzar.
Cierra los ojos. Intenta imaginar cómo era el mundo hace muchos, muchos años, cuando no existían las fronteras. Debió ser una época llena de asombro y terror, y también de grandes misterios. No había ningún animal capaz de transformar el mundo. Y entonces llegamos nosotros.
Welcome to Cine Latino en Casa, Cine Latino at Home, October 15 to the 22nd, a unique program of the newest award-winning Spanish and Portuguese language films from all over the globe, presented by the MSP Film Society, the regional exhibitor of international independent films since 1963, and celebrating in 2021 the 40th anniversary of the International Film Festival that takes place every spring. They also have year-round programming, and it's one of the foremost important arts organization in the area. We know you will enjoy the show, available virtually this year through mspfilm.org, and hope you can spread the word. In this year of great change and uncertainty, your engagement is more important than ever, and providing critical support to your favorite nonprofit arts organization and to artists, communities, and cultures reflected in the stories told. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Obrigado. Thank you, everybody. Welcome. We just saw the trailer for the beautiful film that we are featuring this year as part of the first ever retrospective to our fantastic Rodrigo Reyes. I'm not going to be moderating this particular panel. I have the privilege of having a very special guest. So let me introduce our moderator and then very quickly to the rest of the guests. Jessica Retis is Associate Professor in the School of Journalism and Director of the Masters in Bilingual Journalism at the University of Arizona. She has more than 2 decades of professional experience as a journalist in Peru, Mexico, and Spain, and over 3 decades of experience as a teacher and a professor in US, Spain, and Mexico. Welcome, Jessica, and thank you so much for being part. It's also a little bit of a dream come true having you here. I'm going to start with Rodrigo, Rodrigo Reyes, director, producer, writer, and many more things. And the focus of this year's retrospective, the first ever on his work. With us, we have also the indomitable Inti Cordera, who is a producer of pretty much all of Rodrigo's films, but also today sparing a little bit of time because he's also the director of Docs MX festival, one of the most important documentary festivals in the world, happening exactly at this time. So thank you so much for giving us this time. And last but not least is Justin Chin, award-winning cinematographer. And you just saw some of the pictures for the people who haven't seen Purgatorio. And of course, the film is going to be playing throughout the week in the festival. But the film has been shown before in other festivals, and hopefully you can catch it up outside Minnesota, where Cine Latino is playing. That's all for me. I'm going to leave Jessica to take it from here. Thank you to all of you. And again, thank you for joining us in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hebe, for the invitation. And thanks to the director, Rodrigo Reyes, producer, Inti Cordera, and cinematographer, Justin Chin, for producing an impressive version of The Border. This is definitely a documentary that gives an authentic and emotional journey to the soul of La Frontera. For me, it's particularly touching living in Tucson, where I'm here right now, just an hour away from the border, La Frontera, right? And I would like to start just a game, let's say a game, right? And I would like to start you asking, because this is how I start my classes as well. I always ask my students, how was your week today? Give me one word, right? In this case, I'm going to ask you, how would you define the border, La Frontera, with one word, and why? Rodrigo? You're muted, Rodrigo.
I would say hope. Hope is the word for me, esperanza.
Why?
Because it's a place where hope, where that has been built around hopes. You know, all sorts of hopes, and the triumph of hope and the failure of hope as well.
Inti? You're muted, Inti.
Sorry. Trust.
Why?
Because now I'm thinking we must trust borders not as a limit, but as a possibility of exchange and sharing.
Interesting. Justin?
I would say opportunity. I think there is an opportunity for bringing the countries and the political parties and the world and people together. It already happens. It's just we have a wall that represents a division.
So I'm going to move this to your sources, right? You have been talking to so many people. I guess there's some people that couldn't make it to the documentary, as always happens, right? So you have talked with many people around the border and this and other side. And what do you think is the main idea of these people? What idea they have about the border, La Frontera? From what you have been talking to them, what is your experience? What is the most common idea that they have for La Frontera? Rodrigo.
I think what we experienced, because we met so many people in so many different places of the border, that there was like this constant feeling of what's next, that living day to day, because they're so close to the situation and things can change very quickly on the border. And I think that feeling of like, you know, you're in your bubble, but you're really part of a larger monster or animal that is this whole border, right? This thing of possibility and trust and, you know, and hope. So it was really interesting to start comparing characters, because we met everyone, but they didn't meet it themselves. You know, they didn't meet each other.
Inti, what is your thought about that?
Well, my only thoughts right now is trying to remember that experience that happened almost 10 years ago when this adventure started, you know, when I somehow joined Rodrigo in the adventure of making this road trip along the Mexican-American border, and 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 even when I not kind rejected, but I didn't was really trusting the idea of making another film about the border. The results and the experience that Purgatorio drives us through, it was and it's still being an experience to understand this complex world and universe around this, I don't know, 2,000 miles of territory sharing Mexico and the United States.
Mm-hmm. Justin, in your case, I'm going to ask you also to remember what happened, right? 7, 8 years ago, almost 10, right? When you were walking around Tijuana, Nogales, you name it, right? And what do you think was the main idea that you find in all the sources that you were talking to?
I do think there was a lot of hope and potential that people were either on both sides. And I think there was a need to see that there was something that can happen, some agreement or some thought about what it means to be neighboring countries. It's a very broad experience that we had. You know, we talked to many different types of people, and they had varying different views. And but I felt like they do, whether they wanted the border to be closed or whether they wanted to be open, it was for something that they felt was an opportunity. And it can be very divisive, of course, as you could see in the film. But you know, and they all have their own worlds, and everybody had their own experiences given their position or place along the border. And it was very interesting to see how people reacted to various thoughts and impression about what it means to be on the border. But most people were looking for something to be solved or something to happen, and we're hopeful for that to happen. Whether it happens or not remains to be seen.
Inti, I want to go back to the idea you started commenting about. Is I've seen that you have produced a wide range of long feature projects, series, TV shows, you name it. In your collaborations with Rodrigo, we can count, well, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 at least, right? Purgatorio and Lupe Under the Sun. How would you describe this kind of professional hermandad? 4, okay, so yeah, okay, correct me. I have only 2. Tell me which one, what are the two other, and also how do you agree to starting this kind of journey together 4 times, not 2?
How? Well, when I first met Rodrigo was when a film he did in 2010 and was selected for Docs MX Festival. Was the first time I see Rodrigo's work, and we met and we started first like a friendship, no? And sometime after, Rodrigo came with me with the first dossier of Purgatorio, and I wasn't really sure why Rodrigo wanted to do another film about the border, no? But we exchanged letters of support from our production company, trying to support him first, no? And then he challenged me. He said, this is not going to be another film about the border. This is going to be a very special film about the border. So I got surprised on that. So when I challenged him to conform a film team, because previous Rodrigo's works were made by himself, with his camera around. I challenged him to find a photographer, and he found Justin. I challenged him to find a sound guy, and he found Inercia. Or maybe I introduced them both. And when he came back with the first images from the shooting, I really miss. I wasn't able to join them as a producer in the car, in the van that they were driving. So after that, I confirmed my trust in him and in the project, and we start searching for funding for post-production that we found with the National Mexican Film Institute. And we premiere Purgatorio in Guadalajara, where Ebe found her and found the film interesting, and he invited us to LA Film Fest. And with that, an outstanding festival route for the film. And in that time, and from time to time, from beer to beer and tequila from tequila, we become really good friends, and we trust each other. And then we jumped with an award that was given to Purgatorio to start thinking in Lupe Bajo el Sol. And then we started thinking in the third film that is not yet finished. It's in process. Is Sanson and me. And in the while, I visit him in Merced, in California, where he lived with his family. And we made a trip to Yosemite Park. And while we were walking around Yosemite, we started thinking in 499, the last film that was premiered in Tribeca Film Festival this year, and that has gone to Hot Dogs, EBS Film in Korea, jumped to Argentina. Now it's coming soon to La Mostra de Sao Paulo. And well, that's a way that we have gone together for 10 years of working and friendship.
But let's say that Purgatorio was the beginning, right? Of everything. Yes. Okay, so now I'm right with this. So let's go to Justin. Justin, it was interesting to me to see your work, and then because you have a particular passion for visual storytelling in film, but also in media technology, in video games. What caught your attention about this project when working with Rodrigo?
I think the most striking thing about this project, and when Rodrigo and I first met, we didn't know each other before the project, and another cinematographer who dropped out, had to drop out, recommended me, and I'm sure other people, to Rodrigo. And so we met and sat down and talked. He provided an outline for the project. And when I read through it, I was seeing a lot of interesting details in what he was describing. And it wasn't very typical of a documentary project, because it was embedding a lot of imagery, it was embedding a lot of metaphorical thinking, and so it just fueled a lot of thoughts about how this could be portrayed. And I pulled out some art books and visual guides that I had that I thought would fit, and brought them along to this cafe, the meeting that we had, and then that was, it seemed very successful meeting, obviously, and shared those thoughts. And I thought the idea about this landscape, about the details of the landscape, and the border being this, it's it's an inanimate thing, but it actually draws a lot of emotion, and it becomes this creature. It becomes this thing that people describe, and so that was the striking element for this, and being able to see it as a creature or this kind of thing that is snaking across the landscape, and being able to pick out all these details, and being a very meditative film with its imagery, and was really exciting to me, to be able to just take a shot and sit there, and Rodrigo and I would just point the camera, frame it right where we want it with all the necessary details, and then we would count to 20. And normally you don't do that. Normally you don't count to 20. You usually just say, okay, you got it. But we were sitting in with that moment as well. We were taking in the moment. And that was really powerful. And it was, so from beginning to end, being able to conceive and to share ideas about how it should be shot, and then as well as to execute on that. I think we successfully made that connection and thread.
Mm-hmm. So one thought that I had, and I think is the same for the people that are attending this Q&A, because we usually go and to watch documentaries, etc. That this documentary is so different because you don't talk to experts, you don't tell the name of the places you visit, you don't mention the name of the people you interview. So it had me guessing sometimes, oh, this must be Tijuana. Oh, this must be, oh, I think I recognize it, right? So, and then when I listen to some men and women, you made me play with your documentary. Was that intention? What was your main objective by doing this, Rodrigo?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you to Inti and Justin for sharing our stories of how we met and how our collaborations began. I think Inti's really absolutely right, because he pushed me, and he really pushed me in the best way. I knew that when I came back from the first production, I had to show Inti something, and I had to prove to him that the movie was good. But, that was so great because I had gotten a lot of no's, but Inti said, yes, but prove it. And I think that's what I needed. And he also pushed me to work with a cinematographer, to work with a different level of language. And, when I showed up to meet Justin, he impressed me, not because he brought a lot of books, but because the books had a lot of thought in them, about how to talk about the border. And one thing that I understood is that we are not making a journalistic movie. We cannot beat the journalists. The journalists are our friends. They're our helpers, but they do different things. They do things that can move a lot faster. We were going to take our time, like Justin was saying. And so that's why we erased all the information. And if you know the border, you're going to try to pick the places, and that's really cool. But it's also great that it all kind of flows in one space. And that, because if I were to say, okay, this scene is Ciudad Juárez, people know about Ciudad Juárez because of what they hear in the news, and they're going to associate something. So we wanted to erase that and just force people to think about this issue. We thought that the border was in crisis at that time, and it was, but we never imagined that it would get so much worse. Like the humanitarian side, especially, it has gotten a lot worse in 10 years. So we wanted people to just kind of reset, because we felt the conversation was too hot, too hot already. Yeah.
So let's go back to the what we saw on the screen, right? So how would you explain the metaphor of the Purgatorio? How did you decide to use the title of the? It's very interesting how you name it, right? And how you start with the title, or maybe start with the movie and put the title, in this particular narrative because it's very different. So I'd like to have some explanation about the metaphoric thinking, right?
I think it goes back to what Inti was saying about why another border movie. Well, is there, like, what's the deeper truth about this place? And it is very much like the purgatory in the Divine Comedy, where it's like a mountain, and people are trying to climb and get to heaven. But what side is heaven? You know, in the movie, is it Mexico? Is it the U.S.? And are we? Is the border a place where we pay for our sins as countries, right? Because that's what purgatory is. Um, so as you watch the film, I think like that idea, that metaphor changes with different reflections that come up in the movie, different reflections of this is what human beings have built. And purgatory is the place that is made to reflect what we did in our lives. So it reflects our choices. And I think the border's a place that reflects that of our countries, you know. It shows the best and the worst of both sides.
And why did you decide to use voiceover? It was interesting to start. It's, for me, the sense was like, I was in your brain. I'm following him. I'm with him, right? He's thinking. Am I thinking? Is he thinking? Are we thinking?
Yeah, that's the hope, right? That you get to have this conversation with me, and that I also have a relationship with the border, right? Because I'm bicultural, binational, born in Mexico, living in California. So it's like, to me, I needed to kind of like speak to this place, and I knew that that could help you when you're watching the film. We're traveling together in this line.
And I read some of the interviews that I've published out there. And one idea that kept me thinking is that you answer, I don't remember which one of the interviews, that you wanted to feel instead of understand. You wanted to feel the border. What is that you wanted to, I guess it related to your emotions, right? But why do you have that perception? And what's drive you to do this?
Because I was tired of how politicized this idea was. It's just so politicized, and everybody's explaining to us the border is this, the border is that. I wanted people to feel it for themselves, to feel like they watched the movie and they visited this place on their own. And we worked really hard on that with the cinematography and with Inti on building the story of like, how do we create a journey, not an explanation? We're so tired of that. I mean, it's just like people are telling us what to think all the time. Why not share it? Why not just share an experience? Because that's where cinema, I think, really becomes magic.
I'm interested in these particular quotes. There are so many, but I chose these ones, and I will ask the three of you, or maybe we can do. I have three quotes, and maybe I can ask each one of you to give me your reflection about this, right? Because it really get me thinking. So one is corruption is a key word that is used to explain this chaos, but it's a small and weak, can grasp the situation. There are no words that can adequately explain the border. There is something bigger prowling at the street, and its name is not corruption. It's simply selfish and merciless power. Oh my God, what a quote. Rodrigo.
I mean, this is an idea that I've been developing a lot, I guess. And now with the new projects that I'm making with Inti with 499, that idea of power has continued. But I think like we always say corruption, corruption, but it isn't just corruption. It isn't like there's like one thing that we can take out and clean everything up. There's a problem with the worldview. There's a problem of there's good people and bad people. There's dogs and then there's humans. You know, there's this side and that side. There's a deeper problem that's not corruption. It's something about cruelty and who is stronger that really shows up in a border. You know, the situations we see in the movie don't happen because of corruption. They happen because of this power, and it's really hard to define specifically. It's mysterious, but it's very real, and it affects a lot of lives, I think. Because if it was just corruption, well, then just follow the rules. But what happens when the rules are broken? What is that power? How power uses the rules and breaks the rules on purpose?
Inti, you're in Mexico right now, right?
Right now, yeah.
Okay, so maybe putting this into context of the other border. So not the border in the north, but in the south of Mexico, right? So if you take that movie and you put it in the other border, what are your thoughts about that?
Oof. Maybe it's the beginning of a new film right now, because it's not a way to try to compare. I mean, the reality of Mexican southern border is totally different, no? But it's at the same time some kind of same. But the difference is that most of the migrants from Central America doesn't want to stay in Mexico. They want just use Mexico as to cross as to the United States. What I was thinking, Jessica, maybe I will go another way of your question. It's now that I'm thinking back in this project, no, I'm trying to understand how it became such an important and powerful film that has gone through screens and screens all over almost 10 years, a decade, no? And it's because that challenge that we took 10 years ago, no, that was enriched with Justin's absolutely wonderful photography work, with these layers of discourse that Rodrigo found in I was thinking now, in a search of characters and stories, to find, not to search characters and stories. I don't know if I'm explaining very well, because there was not the time to investigate and to think that we were about to land in Juarez or in Nogales and find the story. The stories presented themselves, no? And that combination of adventure with also this voiceover from Rodrigo, it took a long time to pull down these texts, no, that you started quoting, no, and it was a very, I mean, maybe, and because in the last 10 years we have done another projects and I have worked in another films, but that handcraft work that joined us and made and strengthened the film in the discourse to make it almost like a universal film right now.
Mm-hmm. Let me remind the viewers that you can ask your questions. We're live on Facebook and also in the Q&A in the Zoom session. Please to go ahead and ask your question. I have plenty, but I would like to give you also the opportunity to talk to these outstanding professionals, right? So there's one thing that I wanted to touch. Did we lose Rodrigo now in the camera? There he is. This idea of religion and God, right? The presence of spirituality. I feel like it's a leitmotif during the narrative, right? We see young people with signs directed to criminals, corrupt politicians, etc., standing in the streets, right? Maybe I should include one question there. How do you find them? was a surprise for you. And then also you hear people saying that they were saved by the love of God. What's the point that you're trying to address with this type of scenes?
I think when you talk to people who are in real extreme situations, they are closer to God. They are closer to the idea of spirituality because it's real. It is very real when you're looking for some place to sleep, when you have lost your loved ones, when you are in the problems that some of the characters are in. You're trying to find meaning. Many of us, like, we don't have to think about God because we're like living our lives and we're comfortable. But I always have a lot of respect for the characters in Purgatorio because they're in a very different world, and in that world, God is real. And so all of those ideas help to make the film more about this metaphor. What is a border? Why do we have borders? What does it do to human beings? And so, it's funny because Inti and I are working on a movie about a friend who's in prison, and he talks about God a lot. And who am I to say, well, God is not real? To, maybe not to me, but my life is very comfortable. I'm not facing these problems. I'm only capturing them and making works of art. It's a privilege, So I feel like God just came very naturally to the movie.
And from the cinematographer point of view, Justin, those things when you have the young woman and then the young man just standing with signs, right? How was the process of shooting those scenes?
That was a very interesting experience, and I don't know about we met up with them, and the process was that we met up with them. Rodrigo somehow found them. I'm not sure. He could probably explain that. And we went with them as they prepared at the church, and the commitment there was amazing because I think they just literally were spray painting themselves.
So maybe back to Rodrigo. Oh, sorry, Justin, you were saying? I thought you stopped.
Yeah, and well, and that they were so they were there in their commitment in that, and I just particularly thought that was a little it felt dangerous because of the color and the paint, and it was the smells and it was everything. And but they were out there standing, and they stood out there very stoically, very powerful, and it was hard not to take your eyes off them. So I can't imagine what the authorities were thinking as they drove by. So it's just it's to see that the face of the maker or the face of angels right in front of you is pretty striking. So
yeah, the movie has so many moments, very touching moments, but that one was very interesting for me because you don't hear them. Rodrigo, why did you decide not to talk to them? Because just see them, not you don't hear them.
But they were already speaking so loudly, with their presence. There was no need to speak to them. I think it was just such a beautiful image. And we were very lucky with this movie in terms of finding the characters. We had a lot of help from a local journalist in Juarez, friends all over the border, friends of mine, friends of Inti's, helping us all the time to find people. And that's how we found the angels, and I think it's a image that makes sense. It's an image that makes sense. Angels outside of the police station, it makes more sense now even than it did 10 years ago.
Yeah. And the image is so powerful that you chose one for the image of the film, actually, right?
Yes. It's like, whoa, what's going on? Is this like a surreal place or what?
Exactly. So we got one question from our audience. What were, I need my glasses. What were the biggest challenges on the making of this film? Anyone?
Inti, what do you think was the biggest challenge in this process?
Okay, there is almost not a documentary film without challenges. Starting the idea to making a documentary is a challenge itself, no? And well, there were not too many challenges really. I mean, is the normal challenges of making an independent film. It was like to start, to go through, and to finish. No, one challenge. I mean, maybe Rodrigo can tell, but a challenge. Maybe one was to agree on the final script. It was a challenge.
Yeah, the script, we went back and forth many times on the script. And I think like, it's just like, what do you want to say about something like this? It's the border. It's a huge problem. Everybody has an opinion. There's books and movies and more books and more movies. So we had to just come to peace with the movie that we were making, and go through that process of just like accepting this is our journey. This is what we saw. And it won't be the complete final word on this thing that is the border, And I think the movie is very open to interpretation, and there's a lot of stories that leave you thinking, what happened to this person? What happened after? And I love that about the movie, that it isn't so like, it's not like an answer. Here you go. This is the answer,
One moment that made me think, well, many made me think, but it's one that I want to ask. This particular scene when you're flying over the border, and you mentioned that you have crossed the border so many times, and you made me realize that I have the same feeling when I'm crossing the border. And the thought was, why is it so easy for some and so difficult for others? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an absurd situation. It's an absurd situation that these two men that we see at the beginning, at the end, and I should thank our editor Manuel Singaris. He's the one who said, let's put these two men at the beginning and at the end of the film, and it makes you think those things, and it becomes very clear that there's no good reason why it should be so hard for another person that isn't me or you or someone with a passport to cross. There's no reason at the human level. That I'm not talking about politics. I'm just saying that at a very basic human level, it's absurd, that this person has to climb the wall. And it's also crazy that they can climb the wall, because human beings, we fight for what we want. We fight really hard, So I think like that thought was always in my mind, of our privileges going back and forth on the border. But that's why we can make movies, right? Because we have that opportunity to enter one space and another, and then come back with a movie.
We have another question from the audience. Glasses again. How did you approach filming and talking to the Minuteman, trying to hide the trails, knowing that the film you were making would criticize his actions?
I mean, I remember a screening that we did of the movie, and I'll answer it from the audience perspective. From our perspective in the shoot, I'll get to that at the end of the question, but I remember Inti set up a screening in Coyoacán in Mexico City, in this beautiful plaza. And, we were watching the movie outdoors on a nice, big screen outdoors before, the pandemic, obviously. And it was a wonderful screening. There was a lot of people. And then, the Minuteman came out, his scene started, and you could hear people making comments, making comments about how much they hated this guy. You could hear it. I think someone even like whistled or hissed, you could just feel the tension. And what I found really interesting that screening, and is why I was able to respect this character, was that when he started talking about all the things that Mexico needs to fix so that people don't migrate so much, you could hear the same audience in Coyoacán agreeing. They were like, yeah, you know, he's right. And that's the thing. He's so wrong and he's so right at the same time. And I love that. And I think I really also respect that, you know, when we were filming him, we all treated him with respect, you know, like I didn't have to worry about Justin being rude to Gadget Dan because we didn't agree with him. Everybody was like on the same page and we all treated him with respect. And then later we found the other character who was like the opposite brother of him. Like they're both older white guys alone with too much free time, and they're both in the mountains. And it was so great because the movie wanted to share this stuff. And I think when we look at people who have ideas that are maybe racist and intolerant, like we don't talk to them. We don't figure out what they think. There's no dialogue. Well, we need that dialogue because he's out there. That guy is out there cleaning up the trash, you know, and he has this idea. Let's talk to him, you know? And I love that the audiences understood that he could be wrong and right at the same time.
Such is life, huh? Interesting, yeah. We have other question. Did the making of the film change your perception of the border? Did you learn something about the border that you didn't know before?
I would like to hear what my colleagues think about this question, actually, because they all had different experiences.
I would love to hear Justin's words.
I feel like I'm the outstanding element in this. What did I don't know. I think it goes back to the challenges. I think there was just so much we could see and could add to the film. There were just so many things that were cut. I remember just something that I learned, and it's just something you just have to be there to see or experience. And we all know all these stories, but was that when there was a place right out of where people from the American side would park their RVs and walk across the border pretty freely and go get their medication and then come back. And to see that as like the way people cross very different elements and for very different reasons, almost the similar reasons, but there was just this border that you had to pass through. And it was really open. It was a whole town that was some set up as a pharmacy. So that, to me, that was very striking, because at one side in like Tijuana or you would see people, long lines going into America one way, and then you see long lines going into Mexico the other way for very different reasons. And it was just kind of an eye opener as what does that mean, and why, what are the values and what's separating us? And it just visually a contrast. It was completely very different. So I don't know what it's hard to take something and learn anything from that, but that's just something that there's something wrong there, or there's something very interesting in what we hold as important. And I think that goes to corruption, it goes to politicizing elements and differences. So
we only have some few minutes before we end, which is a pity because I would love to talk to you like forever, but we have some time limit here. I have a couple of things that I really, really want to ask you. And it's about certain moments of the movie, right? Can you please explain? Maybe this is a spoiler momentum for the viewers. I hope that all the viewers already seen the documentary. But I would like to ask you, and maybe you can tell me, well, there's no anything to explain here, but I just wanted to hear you, right? what were you trying to symbolize in these specific scenes, right? The kid shows the green airplane.
I don't know why that kid kept showing us the airplane. He kept coming up to us and showing us this airplane. He was like, you know, I think he had some issues, but he was just the sweetest kid, and he kept coming up and showing the airplane, showing the airplane. And it's such a magical image. It can mean so many things, you know, the airplane. You know, like we are human, we invent things. We invent things, an airplane. You know, it was such a beautiful image. I don't know, we just had to get it, but we didn't really know what it meant. And that's what I love about making documentaries. It's like it's an adventure. It's an adventure. You don't know what this stuff means, but reality is speaking to you. Reality is speaking to you. If you're in the right place, it's going to speak to you. And I remember that day, like we had been playing with the kids, filming in their class. Justin was showing them how to do yoga, and then like they started playing soccer, and this kid just kept coming up with the plane. He was trying to tell us something, and I'm glad that we recorded it. And then as we were finishing the film, it just felt like, oh man, like there's something to this image that is just really mysterious, but it ties everything together.
Another one. The man that climbs the high fence and is getting there, and you got the scene.
Well, to tell the truth of that story, when we got there to the border, we had met these young these two men. Well, one was young, one was older, at a breakfast soup kitchen, and they were on their own. They didn't have a handler. And as you know, Jessica, from living on the border, there's people who control people. They were on their own. So when we got there, it was the first time that this young man had seen the fence, like the fence that where he could actually try to climb it, because he had been in Nogales, and you can't climb it there because there's guards everywhere. But he just started to climb. He just started to climb on his own, and the other guy was like, "No, you can't do this. What are you talking about? You can't do this." And Justin, I was like, "Film this thing," because I would never ask him to do that, but he had to test himself. So in reality, he climbed up there, and then he sat there, and he was like, "I could do this." And then he came back down, and then we did the interview.
Oh.
Yeah. Because you see, he needed to prove to himself that he could do it. He needed to prove himself that he was a human being who can do this.
Yeah.
And so in the edit, you know, and that's what Inti was talking about the editing and the writing and everything of the film. Like, we changed that because it's such a powerful image for the audience, you know, because we might live a whole story behind every scene, but we need to show you a good scene, a scene that really works and makes you think about all this stuff.
Well, I have so many other ones, but we don't have time because we're approaching to the end of this, right? Because we need to finish at 4:30, right? So I want to end with actually the beginning of the documentary, because you start asking the viewers to imagine the world when borders did not exist. And I would like to ask the three of you your thoughts about that.
Who would you like to go first, Inti?
Well, I mean, I think, especially now after this situation we are all going through, it's a thought that retakes importance. No, let's imagine a world without borders, without frontiers. No, because this virus has no borders, has no frontiers, and this confinement that we have been going through for almost a year may let us think that it's a possibility no? And why not? That this is a thought I woke up every day. Why not?
Yeah. Justin?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think we have to. Yeah, I don't know. The cynic in me says that there always will be a border, but I think there's the pandemic has showed us that we actually had to create our own borders, our own protection, and borders don't mean protection, but they're just this arbitrary line. But in that seclusion and the lockdown, we may have learned, especially in America, perhaps, that we may have learned that there are different ways in which that border means nothing. And we were able to, and hopefully people were able to communicate with everybody in the outside world in a different manner. And that is actually a pretty valuable thing, rather than just assuming that borders will protect you. That perhaps there are other ways to be protected and the other ways to connect with people. And the connection has nothing to do with whether there's a line drawn in the sand, and that there's some more meaning to other ways of protecting ourselves. And that's what people think borders are doing. I mean, when it comes down to it. So yeah, I mean, it's a challenging question. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but hopefully more freedom into passing between countries. But that's gonna. I believe we're gonna be a long way away from that, at least at this moment.
Yeah, I agree with both Inti and Justin, and I think like we're in this place now where we realize that so many things that we did that separated us were pointless. We could have been connecting more, like the virtual space, for instance. I went to a wedding on Zoom the other day and I was like, man, this is wonderful. Instead of missing somebody's wedding for whatever reason, I can see it and I can dress up in my living room and make a connection. And I think we need to have that awareness and also understand that we create these things. These things don't exist on their own. We create borders. Borders are human made and they have to have a real purpose. We can't just allow them to become this brutal, painful place that we have right now, separating us between Mexico and the US, or Mexico and Central America. We allow them to kind of have their own life, as if it's like something that is out of our hands. Humans are the only creatures that build borders. Everyone else knows how to coexist in a different way. So we should question that. We should question that and think maybe like children a little bit, because children sometimes are the wisest. That's why we wanted to start the film like a fairy tale, to try to reset our minds and think about it in a different way.
It's a beautiful way and a beautiful thought to end our Q&A. It was a really honor, Justin, Inti, Rodrigo, to talk to you about this. I wanted to talk to you yesterday when I was watching the movie. Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. I hope our audience enjoyed the discussion, and then this is it for now. And then, well, we have so many other opportunities during the festival to keep watching so many other movies. I don't know if you want to add something else so we can end the discussion.
On my side, just thanks for the invitation, Jessica, for the conversation with these very good friends, and to Jesse and Eve for making possible the festival, of course, and this meeting with us, and remembering so many things from that first adventure with Rodrigo and with Justin. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Rodrigo.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you. I hope we can meet again soon. And Jessica, I hope we can one day visit you in Tucson.
Yeah, please come and visit. Well, thank you everyone, and we'll see you again soon, I hope. Thank you.
Keep safe and keep calm.
And wear your mask.
Your mask. And vote.